Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. This week I am the host of the Color Throwdown Challenge, and this is the card I made using the colors, which is green, craft, gray, and white. I was heavily inspired by Debbie Hughes, aka Lime Doodle Design. I will link to her card in my blog post. I loved it. And I wanted to do something similar, but with these colors and a different background stamp and a different sentiment set. So I started with the Laugh in Flowers stamp set. This was part of the big Simon Says brand stamp timber release. And I stamped the Queen Anne's lace image from the set because there's 3 different types of silhouette florals in it. And I stamped this one onto some of Simon's 120-pound smooth white cardstock. And I'm heat embossing it with Hero Art's white satin pearl embossing powder. I was going to do just white embossing powder. I was actually going to do black first. And then I was like, no, I wonder how it'll look in white. And then I remembered I had this embossing powder. And I'm glad I chose it because it's, every time I pull it out, I'm like, oh yeah, I really love this stuff. It's so pretty. So I've got my image heat embossed. And then I'm actually just working on my little mini waffle flower water media mat. I usually just kind of keep this off to the side and just use it as a little palette, but it's really handy for like doing A2 size like ink blending and whatnot because the silicone just kind of grips the cardstock. And for the blending, really simple blending, even with the smear that I got, because I did the Mowed Lawn Distress Oxiding first and managed to get some on my finger and create a smear. I'm going to deal with that later. So I did Mowed Lawn first, and then I used a little bit of speckled egg. I'm obsessed with this color. I love every Oxide color that's out, and I can't wait for the next color whenever it gets released. But anyway, I used the speckled egg more as like a transition just between the Mowed Lawn and then I'm doing Weathered Wood. And again, I don't know why my camera always picks it up. Like, it just makes it look weird. Like, it always makes my blending look very not smooth, I guess. And yet when it's done and looking at it in real life, it's like, it doesn't look anything like this. So I don't know. I think my camera just doesn't like me. But anyway, really simple blending, just those 3 colors, but it's mostly the green and the gray. And that's part of it too, is my camera really picked up the speckled egg, which is kind of funny. It like is showing up really intense on here. But anyway, I did the blending, and then of course I'm going to add splatter. Tons of splatter. I started with the Mowed Lawn Oxide and I just smushed it onto the little media mat there and then picked it up with a wet paintbrush, splattered it on, and then I'm going to splatter on some of the, no, not Weathered Wood, Hickory Smoke. Hickory Smoke is the dark color. I was going to use Weathered Wood, but I went with Hickory Smoke because it's a bit of a deeper gray. So splattered on a bit of that as well. I was going to use just the Speckled Egg Distress Oxide, but then I remembered I have the Speckled Egg distress paint, because with each new color collection they're releasing, I've just been ordering them as the pack with everything. So I was like, ooh, I can use the paint. So I shook that up really well, and I actually just used the little, like the seal from the bottle because there's paint on it, and I was like, that's more than what I need. So again, wet paintbrush, I'm going to splatter that. I'm going to immediately clean that up though, because I of course flip that over. Distress paint is permanent. I've said this before because I use the black soot distress paint a lot. That's my main like black splatter, and distress paint is permanent. So you want to clean it up. You want to get it out of your brushes, your work surface, whatever, because once it dries, it's pretty much there. So I did that. And then for the white splatter, I'm using my Amsterdam liquid white that I always use. And then I got to let this completely dry, and I'm going to die cut it with one of Simon's basic rectangle wafer dies. So I'm going to tape the die into place with some washi tape, and then I'll run this through my die cut machine. So kind of center where I want this image to be. That's why I kind of gave myself a little leeway with the cardstock when I stamped the image. And then for my card background, I'm using the Deco Squares background stamp that CZ Design did for the Stamp Timber release. And I have it face up on my work surface. I inked it up with clear embossing ink, and I'm stamping it onto Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. I was really curious to see, like, just as is, it's fabulous, but I was like, I wonder what the white satin pearl looks like on the Desert Storm, because this is one of those emboss powders that it looks different on whatever surface you're using on, like whatever type of color cardstock. And again, I gotta say, I love it. This is one of those embossing powders that, again, when I pulled it out, I'm like, I should get multiple containers of this and then fill one of my big sandwich containers like I do with my white and my gold, etc., like my most used. So I melted that on the background, funneled back the embossing powder in the container. You can just see that. Ugh, it's beautiful. I love it. So I die cut this background with the largest of the A2 thin frames wafer die. I don't want the frame. I just wanted it die cut slightly smaller. You could just trim it down with a paper trimmer. I just like using wafer dies whenever possible. I like the pressure smooth edge it gives. It's a weird little distinction, but I personally like it and notice it, so whatever. Anyway, die cut it with that, set it aside. Sentiments are from the CZ Design Clean Line Gratitude. That's another set. I can never have enough thank you wafer dies, thank you stamps, anything like that. Thank you cards are what I make the absolute most of, so this one I love. So I white heat embossed one of the words onto some green leaf cardstock, and then more of the words from the set I'm stamping onto just that Desert Storm cardstock with that Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink, and my messy hair is getting in the way, but I was trying to make sure I stamped it just straight right along the very bottom of this cardstock because it just makes it so much easier to trim this out. So I was using my little guillotine trimmer, and I can trim these down because I'm going to use one of the sentiments on the outside of the card, and then the other one I'm going to use on the inside of the card. So I've got those trimmed down, and then that thankful word that I had heat embossed, I die cut it with the coordinating wafer die. And now I'm going to work on the inside of my card. This is Simon's, again, heavyweight white cardstock. It's a top folding A2 card, and I'm inking up that Queen Anne's lace image. And the only reason I even know what this is, because I have a black thumb. I don't know flowers other than like the basic ones most of the time, but this set actually has the names of each one in it, which I was like, thank you. And I'm actually going to use that in a second. So I inked up that stamp with the Hickory Smoke and the Mowed Lawn Oxide inks. Stamp that onto the inside of the card. And then I have some gray and white straight pattern paper. This is from an MFT pack that came out forever ago. I still have a bunch of like random little scraps of it. So the gray and white striped, I just had it in my head. I had to use it for this card. So I trimmed that down and added it. And I added the one sentiment to the inside of the card. And then I remembered to pull out the Queen Anne's lace stamp from the set, and I'm going to ink that up with Brush Corduroy Distress Oxide ink because this is kind of the closest color to like a craft color. So just stamp that on the inside as well, and now I can start assembling my card front. So I adhered the background that I had heat embossed on the Desert Storm cardstock first with some craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere the sentiments and another little strip of that just gray and white pattern paper. And then the main little panel, I'm going to pop that up with some of Simon's Big Mama foam tape. Press that into place. And then once that's adhered, I am going to add a ton of bling. Literally a ton. I always say a ton. This time I went completely bonkers because I started like pulling out one after another, and I was like, ooh, this color matches too. And oh, this color looks great too. Oh, yeah. So I have like moss green pearls, cafe au lait pearls, some gray clouds crystals, some snow crystals, and then I put in a few of the Studio Claudia iridescent butterflies as well because you can't resist with images like this. It's just too perfect. And then off camera, I actually end up changing a couple things around, like removing a couple crystals and adhering different ones in place. And I made sure to adhere one right on top of that little green ink smear because I could see it. Probably no one else would have noticed it after all the splatter and everything, but again, it's just me. So I adhered everything into place. And then off camera, I grabbed one of my Desert Storm envelopes and I heat embossed the image with that same satin pearl embossing powder. And then I just blended just a tiny bit of that Mowed Lawn Oxide ink just along the bottom of the envelope, just kind of tie it all together. And that finished off this card and envelope. So as always, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a link to the Color Throwdown Challenge, to Debbie's blog post, and then all the supplies I use. So you can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!